Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
From the Hursuline Tourist Helping Hands Foundation. We're here to offer educational assistance to needy schools,
scholarships to underprivileged children, and assistance to the homeless and disabled.
Looking forward to your support in 2020 and beyond. So we're gonna go to like under the viaducts where the homeless people hang out and pass the bags out to them.
Pass the bags and a blanket. So.
I'm, from Belize, from Dangriga, like yourself. My mom and my dad, they still reside in Dangriga. They were just here for Belize Day weekend, so I had fun with them. My siblings are still in Belize. I'm the youngest of five. Over the years, I think that, looking from where I came in Dangriga, a lot of times it just dawns on me how rich that culture is. You have a very, very big appreciation for your beginnings a lot of times along your journey,
right?
And I think that I'm not just at a place where about myself I'm living a life of gratitude. I'm living a life of of happiness. I'm living a life of contentment,
right?
That aside, I'm pretty much just someone who loves having fun, having a good time, very family oriented, very, very, I love fellowship with friends, and of course, my career and my profession, because that has been, one that I've carefully crafted for myself.
Very good.
So
Peter Johnson as a little boy.
Mischievous.
Back in Belize, specifically in Dangriga. Give me the genesis of Peter Johnson, and let's segment your journey in Belize, and then we'll talk about coming to America. I kind of like the coming to America. But 1 second before you answer, let's talk about your upbringing in Dangriga and how it has molded you and prepared you to be this man that you are today.
Well, I pride myself from coming from the school of hard knocks, right? Very humble beginnings. I come from a household that, we didn't have much materially. And for me, it was an awakening, because ever since I was a kid, I could remember my parents, every day, just on the daily grind just to make sure that our basic needs are met. My siblings and I, and I watch them even now, that they still do that, not for us anymore, but now it's just a matter of, that's just became their passion over the years.
Right.
But seeing that from a very, very young age, seeing that your mom goes over and beyond to make sure that, you guys are well. My dad was always making sure that, the house runs the way that it's supposed to run. And that was something that instilled in me a sense of discipline. Because, again, back in the days, you are not spared.
Right.
You know what I mean? You are not spared from, from chastisement. You do wrong. Your parents are there to correct you, and sometimes not in the lightest way. But still, it was a sense of discipline. Growing up in Dangriga, I remember as a kid having chores. As a kid, you would tend to wonder, what are the point of chores? In hindsight, you tend to realize that, what that did was it was starting to prepare you to take on responsibility. Another thing I could remember, with our parents, whenever any one of us would do anything wrong in the house, my mom would always make it a teaching moment.
Very good.
Where it's like, it's not because Cyril does something, she's gonna lecture Cyril. Everybody is gonna get a lecture, because for her, she saw that as, what, I don't want this to repeat from either one of you. So all of those, those very early lessons and that upbringing definitely helped to shape a lot of who I grew up to be as a person.
Right.
Being able to have that sense of responsibility, to have that sense of discipline, to work towards what you want. My mom used to always say, you know what, you guys have one job in this house, and that's to bring good grades. You don't have to pay a bill, you don't have to do none of that stuff. Your only responsibility in this house is to go to school and bring good grades. So, and for the most part, we tried to live up to that. But all of those things, helped me to be able to craft adulthood.
Very good. What are some of your fondest moments living in Belize?
Oh my God. Fondest moments living on
Tell me about some of your trouble as well. Somebody trouble.
Living on the Road. I think the fondest memory that I have of my childhood is living on Gomagarugo Road. With that neighborhood as it was. I remember, we had, the whole block, and we were all connected as a block, where I still remember some of my friends, growing up with Shanae and Alvan and Arlie, and you had Talia, you had Marsha, you have Poodle, the whole block. We used to all get together and just have fun, man. The kid stuff, hide and seek, you play bat, you make cat, you do all of those things that we do in Belize that, right. Unfortunately, I think a lot of the kids don't even know what the joys of doing all of that thing now, because everybody is on a digital medium of some sort. But all of that stuff, I think, tap into creativity, and the way that I look at it, every time I'm supposed to think about Belize, those are some of the fondest moments that I have. Very early childhood, living on Gomagarugo Road on that block, where we just had tons of fun and just being kids and goofing off.
What's a how does a December look in Belize? Nearing the 25th of December.
Well, at this point, I would have been, if I was at home, young me, 8, 9, 10-year-old me, I would have already had to be, sanding, the table and the chairs in preparation for fresh varnishing.
Right.
We would have already been canvassing the stores, the window shop, and, they look for Marley, for say what fresh Marley going down. You already know that, Mom, I make a trip to Belize City for what I make because we need new curtain. You know what I mean? And then as of
painting of the house.
And then as of next week, you start with the painting.
Mm-hmm.
You start to, you now have to start to soak the fruits for the fruit cake in rum.
Mm-hmm. Black cake.
White cake. And the whole nine, you know what I mean? And and all of that, you look forward to, it's a real season, for us in Belize, it's a real season. You had, and then, of course, as soon as, Christmas take off, you have Jankuno, you have Wanargo, you have Cherry Canary, it's just so rich in culture, especially in Dangriga, and that's my December memory every year after year. In my family, if we don't get together any other time, throughout the year, you already know, Christmas, the whole family come together.
Mm-hmm.
And that was started, it's damn near 20 years now.
Right.
And so my mom, all her sisters, all the cousins, and and their children, we would always get together, come December, one big family dinner.
Let's fast forward for a bit.
Okay.
How would you compare Christmas in the United States versus Christmas in Belize in general?
Man, it's the way that I look at it, right? I would normally say that there's no comparison, but that depends on what you're looking for. If you're looking for, for culture, if you're looking for, the festiveness of Christmas, then I would say, Belize, of course, Christmas in Belize is it. But of course, here I think it's a lot more. It's so commercialized here, where a lot of emphasis have been on like gift giving and and eating and football and all of that stuff. Where for us, nobody not get gift. You know what I mean?
Right.
So there's no exchange of gifts or anything like that. We had that satisfaction in knowing, what, you woke up, you go to church, you attend midnight mass, sometimes
Right.
December 24th, when mass done, you do a shift off, sometimes maybe the same church close, you go in the dance. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, it all depends on what you look for. So that comparison is striking,
Mm-hmm.
whereby for us, especially as Garinagu,
Right.
we have our own rituals, our own traditions of how we celebrate Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
If you were to compare that, to here in the States, then of course, it's strikingly different.
Right. Very, very different.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your profession. You said you're in the IT industry. What exactly do you do?
So
if you would explain in layman terms to somebody who have absolutely no clue
idea
as to what you do.
Okay. So in layman terms, all right, let me give you the official. So officially, I am an information systems engineer, right? What is that? What does that encompass? For example, you want to build a house, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you want to build a house, the first thing that you do, you have to contact an architect to draft up your plan,
Mm-hmm.
right? Once the architect is going to come in and he's going to give you an overall plan. He's going to be consulting with, electricians, plumbers, all of those people to figure out where are those parts supposed to go and how are they going to contribute to the overall design of your house, right? And of course, you go through all of that. You get to the point where you get your permits, you get your approval you get your inspections done, you get your approvals, you start laying your foundation, and then you start building from the ground up. Now think of software the same way.
Okay.
Right? So for me, I am that architect putting that plan together. So I'm studying, same way that architect is going to come to you, okay, Cyril, what kind of house do you want? Do you want a bungalow? Do you want an upstairs, this and that? What are your requirements? So that's the same thing that I do with software. So what it is that we're looking at computerizing business processes,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the systems at the bank, that's an information system, right? The systems that you have, your email system, that's an information system. Facebook, that's an information system. Anything that, that's driven by data being collected constitutes an information system. So for me, what I do is, I design those systems from the ground up, from database design to coding business requirements to, developing what the user sees on the screen, the UI, which is the user interface.
Mm-hmm.
So I've spent the past 15 years honing those skills.
I see.
So that's what I'm doing now. Over the course of my career, I've worked for a corporation that was in the legal industry. I worked for a corporation that was in medical billing and insurance. I've worked for a client that was in aviation.
Interesting.
I worked with a client. I'm now working with a client who is in accreditation.
So it's pretty much across the board.
So it's across the board. You have to understand that business processes. Automation is trending. With current modern day technology, most businesses, since especially after the economic crisis here in the United States, a lot of businesses were looking at ways that they could cut operational cost. And most of the times that comes with them improving on their technology. So this is why technology sometimes get a bad rap, in places like Belize, and especially in developing nations, because people perceive it as being the replacement of human resources, right? And but whether it happens now or whether it happens 10 years from now, the technology is not going to go anywhere,
right?
And so automation is a theme that you're going to hear frequently with businesses in terms of their business processes, because who doesn't want to get maximum productivity at the minimum possible cost?
Very. Now let's paint me a scenario where company A is using an outdated system or not using the technology that you build. Is build is the right term,
right?
Paint me a scenario whereby company A is using an outdated system or not utilizing the type of technology that you build and not utilizing your service, versus company B that comes to you and say, hey, we'd like you to put together, automate these processes, so to speak. Give me a visual example.
A visual example. For example, I don't want to make it seem like I'm lambasting a particular industry or sector, but for example, you go to some, private or sometimes even government offices, right? And for you to transact business with that entity, it's oftentimes either, as a non-existent electronic system, meaning that they're only on paper.
Okay.
Right? So they would either pull out, binders or ledgers or something like that, versus, some of them, they that do have electronic, processes, they would have a system, but let's say that system was built 10 years ago, 15 years ago. It was built using the technology at that time.
Okay.
You see, so technology, because of the fact that it's a revolving door, a 15-year system would be considered a legacy system. Even by the standards that we use now, anything over 5 years is legacy. Because that's just the rate at which it keeps on changing.
Right.
So versus, when you look at, a system like Facebook, if you notice that one of the things that they do, they would change the features, like different things operate different way. It might look differently. You get new emojis. You know what I mean? Like they always try to keep it fresh because they want to keep it on the cutting edge of technology, because they figure that would appeal more, to people, because as the features are coming out and people are getting acquainted with it, because imagine now you have touch screen, right? So let's say, right now you go to the airport, you could check in, at the kiosk, right? That's relatively, new within the past 10 years. They've been building up and improving on that technology.
Right.
Now imagine you go to an airport that doesn't have that, whereby you now need to go and stand in that line to wait for a personnel.
Yeah.
You see,
which still exists.
You see the difference. So
right.
so now you start to see where it is super important that you not only adapt, the technology to meet your needs, but you also need to make sure that it's adapted on a long-term plan. There has to be, there have to be accommodations in there for, okay, how, what does the upgrade cycles look like? How long are we going to have this system before we're going to need to upgrade it? Things like that. Those are the kind of conversations that I have with clients. When you are coming up with a design, you need to. It's not necessarily that, okay, I'm coming in building something for now. Yeah, it's going to serve your immediate need, but everything has to be long term, because these systems oftentimes are not cheap.
That's interesting. Hypothetically speaking, let's say this could actually be a real life example. As you're talking, you're kind of inviting me into your world, your space professionally. So in Belize, you have two major airlines locally.
Okay.
You have Maya Island Air, you have Tropic Air. You purchase a ticket online, or you go to the counter.
Right.
Or if you don't book in advance, you go there, you got to go to the front desk.
Right.
How would you automate something like that? Give me a scenario where you would automate their system.
Well, let me ask you this. Do they have a mobile app?
I don't think they do. I don't think so. Not that I know of.
Okay. See, what mobile applications give you now, it gives your customers, access to your systems on the fly, with 24-hour access. Whereby I don't need to necessarily be in front of a computer, because these days, who sits in front of a computer? Most people are doing things, on some kind of device, whether that's a tablet, a cell phone, something of that nature. So, so for me, that would be the first thing that comes to mind. Like, okay, you already have a system in place, right? Because that same booking system, that's the information system. That's the systems that I create, right? They say that system that you go in, book your reservation, make your payment, all of that stuff. That's the information system that I built and designed. Right. So, so there's already one in place. It's not necessary that you're coming in and throwing the whole thing out.
I see.
Right? So it's just to start building upon what they already have.
Improve the system.
So, all right, you will start talking to the users from both, the airline perspective, and you start looking at surveys. What are clients saying? What are some of the the feedback that they're receiving from their customers in terms of the usage of their system. Is it friendly enough? Is it understandable enough? Can you change maybe some of the way that it looks, to make it more user friendly? All of that stuff, is doable, without having to throw the whole thing out the door.
Right.
And then you can look at the possibilities of can we turn this in? Can we have the mobile section of the system integrated on top of that? Can you now design what you call APIs, the application programming interface, whereby now your system, it will give your system the ability to talk to other systems.
Right.
Right. So now you find out that, for example, if you have, like within the tourism industry, you have hotels and stuff like that actually, make frequent bookings on behalf of guests and stuff like that. That hotel system can now talk directly to Tropic Air. So now within the hotel system, personnel at the hotel, they can book a ticket from within their hotel system, but it's not going to communicate through an API and make that booking within Tropic Air. That's the same way how Orbitz work, right? How Expedia works. You're on Expedia, but you're booking a system with American Airlines. It's all, it's all
They're
API driven.
Right.
You see where I'm coming from? So those are the kind of things that we, you want to start to do. One of the things that we have out here is look at your credit. Whenever they want, your credit is used as a verification of your identity, right? They send, certain particulars, to the credit bureaus, and it's going to come back and tell you whether it's a match or whether it's not. The federal government have it with Social Security, with E-Verify. You see, so all of these things are different. So you could actually, and I say that just to say that you can actually, start in building upon what they already have, to just bring it up into the future. Right. So it's not necessarily that, you want to come in and just, extract what they have, throw that away, and be like, okay, here you go, this is something brand new. No, that's not the idea. The idea is that, you got to look at existing systems, you have to look at existing business processes and see if those business processes are being met by that system, and where there are room for improvement, you improve. After improvement, you start look at enhancements. In terms of the business, what's the business's vision? If your vision, I can't even imagine a business who wouldn't want whose vision, a part of their vision is not having 24-hour access.
Yeah.
Whereby, all right, now you can have, mobile technology sitting on top of it, and then on top of that, you have API technology where now you can offer integration with other systems. All of those kind of things tends to expand your business, on a wider geography.
Interesting. What project are you most proud of as of date?
I received 2016, I was actually a subcontractor. So I was hired by somebody who then outsourced me to somebody else, but ultimately the end client was the Chicago Department of Aviation. What was challenging about that project is because anything that has to do with government, a lot of times is very, very highly political. Decisions are made a lot of times, based on how it plays out, politically, rather than how it plays out, for the benefit of businesses. So being in an environment like that and having to adjust based on my experience with corporate, going into government service was kind of like in my face, right? Like, all right, I kind of got the feel from the get-go that I'm going to need to tread very carefully. And again, because of the fact that, when you look at the project itself, the project was one that the airport, cannot function without. You know what I mean? I was revamping, the training, the training application, for airport personnel. So anybody at Chicago here or Chicago Midway, who carries one of the ID badges for access within the airport has to do that training to stay in compliance with FAA guidelines. So, so that training that they do, they of course they have the, 2 offices that, that integrates, to provide the information that's necessary for that training. You had the ID badging office and then you had the training unit. So for me, when you look at the magnitude of that project, where there is literally no room for error within that project. You have no room for error. That system has to be accurate 110%. Right? Because people's access, is on the line, and especially in this day and age that we're living, when we're talking about airports, it is very critical that we get that right. So, you don't want the wrong people, to have the wrong access. You don't want the right people to not have access, you know what I mean? And of course, your badge is issued based on the fact that you have done training. There's an airport expansion happening at O'Hare, so you have ComEd, you have AT&T, you have all of these utility companies out there working on the airfield. These people, though they're not employed by the airport, they need training to know how to maneuver on the airfield.
Right.
You see, so now you could imagine that database has to be 100% accurate. And that, I think, was not to say that, some of the other, projects that I've worked on, had room for error, but you could feel the pressure of this. Right? Because this has damning effect if you get it wrong.
Of course.
Literally, for me, it became a matter of civic duty.
Yeah.
Like, more so than a project, I had to take it on like, okay, this is my civic duty, because everything has to be accurate. And of course, it was the system that I put together for the airport made up, a large percentage of what their FAA audit, would be.
Right.
So the FAA would come in and that's the system that they're looking at primarily to judge compliance. So that in and of itself, placed a lot of weight on your shoulders, so it was a lot of long hours, but we were able to pull it off. I think within 9 months of the project, we were able to pull it off just in time for the audit of that year, which the airport had passed.
Some interesting stuff. Now I want to.
Amelia first, right? Dance Amelia first. Yeah, go dance to the lady, right? Yeah? Remember the change in the stone. You can't go a little bit more. Just remember.
Happy New Year
from the Herceline Torres Helping Hands Foundation. We're here to offer educational assistance to needy schools,
scholarships to underprivileged children, and assistance to the homeless and disabled.
Looking forward to your support in 2020 and beyond. So we're gonna go to like the under the viaducts where the homeless people hang out and pass the bags out to them.
Pass the bags and a blanket.
So.
Kind of uproot you out of your professional work and back into the idea of being a Belizean, moving from Belize to the United States. Now, what was it like for you settling in, getting acquainted with a different lifestyle, different culture? What was it like for you?
It had its challenges in the beginning. Challenges in the sense of getting, because you get to Chicago, right? And it being the size of the city is so great that you could easily get intimidated by the mere size of it, in terms of how do you get around, am I ever going to be able to find my way around the city? And of course, because the city itself, doesn't get a good rap in mainstream media, which, that's a whole nother story. But for me, even though it has its challenges from the logistic standpoint of, of culture, of, now having to start your career from the ground up, and being able to have to prove now to, to people, because they see you come from Belize. And I remember my first job, and they were like, well, we're going to start you out as an intern. By virtue of me coming from Belize, because it's not a place that they're familiar with enough to know, how credible, my abilities were. So they started me out as an intern, so from that front, I would say that it presented its challenges. In terms of settling in, I was one of the fortunate ones who did not have a horror story moving to the States. And that is primarily because of my aunt and my uncle. They were the ones who embraced me and, showed me the ropes. Like I came here, and even before I left Belize, my support system here was already established.
Right, that's good.
So for me, I can't tell you that I've run into a horror stories like I've heard a lot of, a lot of our friends, our family have said, my settling from that front in terms of my living situation and all of that stuff, that was seamless. Like, good. It's almost like I left home to come to home.
Very good.
That's fortunate. And that's something that I'm forever grateful for, good. Because that's not common.
What are some of your work ethics and discipline do you think you think that you brought from Belize that you apply here in your living here in Chicago?
The thing about Belize, right? Belize, I think, inherently create a different work ethic for you by virtue of, the scarcity of jobs. You find that in Belize, people are dedicated, to their work and their jobs, and rightly so. You know what I mean? So you find that a lot of in Belize, people spend years, with a certain employer. They have that level of dedication, which I think brings about a certain work ethic, along with it, whereby it oftentimes, it starts out with where it was just a paycheck, and eventually it becomes where, their job builds up to be their passion. Mm-hmm. I think that has helped me here, Because here, due to the fact that, there is, especially in my field, in IT, there's very high availability of employment. People tend to move around a lot, that level of dedication, that level of, oh, I'm coming into this employer and I'm going to invest 5 years here, before I transition over. Some people I've been in, I've been on projects where, employees, I've seen new employees come in for 1 week and then by the second week they don't show up.
Right.
So, things like that. Like, I've never seen a situation like that in Belize before, but here I think just because of the fact that they, the opportunities are there, a lot of times it's taken for granted. So when we come, and we, have that level of dedication, we have that level of drive. A lot of time it's received quite differently, and people are quite frankly awed by it.
For the regular computer user, they use systems that you've built. I mean, that systems similar to systems that you've built, but not knowing or considering, hey, someone really sat behind a computer and wrote codes and do all these things, right? So, but what I want to ask, which is a very straightforward question, are you an employee or an employer? Do you run your own business? You have your own show? And I'm asking this for our audience.
It's been a mixture of both. It's been a mixture of both. I work as a consultant, right? And so for me, I'm not an employee on the site. With my projects, I'm not looked at as the employee because, you're not getting benefits. You're not getting, the whole PTO. You're not getting none of that stuff. I go in, I do a job, I have billable hours, and at the end of, that period, whatever the period that's stipulated in the contract, I give them an invoice for my billable hours and they pay me. So
you're pretty much self-employed.
So for me, it's self-employment in the sense that, I pay myself, but you're still dependent on a project per se, to be able to, to fund you,
Right.
And so for me, since I've been doing that now for 5 years, I'm ready to kick things up a notch. So right now, I'm definitely working on moving, expanding, on my consulting business, to get more, to cover more geography, to be able to cover multiple projects, because I'm only one person.
Right.
So if I get a project that requires me, 40 hours a week, then I could only work one project at a time. So my vision, Vision 2020, is to start expanding on that, So a lot of work have already been done, in terms of the expansion of the consulting of the company, in Credisoft Solutions. So we're moving from, just me being a one-man show, and even though I'm self-employed, I was still heavily dependent on, having a project to work on,
right.
Towards, all right, now I'm managing a consulting firm, that has its own consultants, has its own developers developing the software that we want to establish. And of course, later on, that's going to come with your salespeople, your customer, client services, all of that stuff. So it's growing, and so I'm very, very, happy and looking forward to that. So we primarily are looking at, moving more into becoming a custom development firm. So whereas, you have requirements, of course, your requirements is not the same as, as company B. If you want something that's custom to you, then we are the ones that you want to talk to. If you currently have something, a system in place that, all right, your business processes have outgrown that system and it needs some enhancement, updating, whatever it is, we are the people that you want to talk to. A lot of business.
bad.
Are doing things mobile. So if you have mobile needs, we are the business you want to talk to as well. And whenever our SaaS products hit the market, then, but those, mind you, those are, I could say that those, one is in accreditation and the other one is going to be in education. So, so once those hit the market, then of course, now that is, specific to that industry, we are going to be, to be speaking to these people as well.
What can you say to encourage those who might come after you or coming behind you to say, hey, I think I can do it. This is a success story. Peter Johnson, he came from Belize, he went to school, he worked at Carl Hushner Memorial Hospital. Now he's in Chicago, he has his own company in Credisoft. I can do that too. Yeah. What would you say to someone with that mentality looking at you that will eventually look at this interview?
I think it all has to do with, digging deep, to find out what your passion is. Because for me, all this stuff that you just mentioned, it's not work. It doesn't feel like work for me because it's fun. That's what I'm passionate about, sitting down, analyzing a problem and coming up with, okay, what does that solution look like? I have fun doing that, so my advice would be, be passionate about what it is that you want, because that's the only way you're going to be able to accomplish it. Because the journey is not going to be easy. The journey to accomplishing is not going to be easy. It's going to test you a lot of times. So if it's not something that you really want, it's easy for you to walk away from it. You see? So you got to find that passion. You got to have, because if you find your passion, now you're going to have drive. Whereby barring all obstacles, this is what I want. This is where I want to go. So you're going to push through all those obstacles, push through all those challenges, because at the end of the day, that's what you want. So that would be my best advice to give to people. It's like, dig deep and find out what you're passionate about.
Right.
Because that's what's going to propel you to accomplishing what it is that you want to do.
That's good. That's good. One question that I missed, this we're supposed to be closing off here, but what are some of your hobbies?
Some of my hobbies, well, a lot of people, oftentimes there's a lot of people who, I still have a lot of friends in Belize, and a lot of my friends, they often tell me, oh, you're not changing, why you're still like party, you're still party hard, or this and that. I just like having a good time, whatever that looks like, whether that's with friends, whether that's with family, whether that's out fetting, whether that's out, it doesn't matter. I'm just a lover of a good time, fellowship, and then of course I do a lot of entertaining at my house, so because that's where my friends and my family experience my culinary skills. Because again, if I didn't do IT, culinary would have been my fallback. And
I can attest.
Yeah, we just had dinner.
Yes,
So
the dinner was excellent.
But yeah, and for me, it's all about just living a full life. So I try to keep things balanced. I go out, I socialize. I sometimes stay home. I travel. I do a lot of reading, because that tends to, in my profession, I have to,
Yeah.
So I'm always doing research, I'm always doing reading, I'm always having to learn some new technology in some way, shape, or form. My dogs keep me busy, so and just live a good one, man. And of course the drink, and I do all of that while with a glass in my hand.
That's a good one. That's a good wrap.
So yeah, I don't put down the drink.
Well, Pete, it has been a pleasure. If you have any last words, final words for our audience.
Final words. Yeah, I mean, I'm just glad, for this opportunity, You know, everybody knows that I'm very camera shy. So, you know, you pulling this out of me was like,
you
know,
can't
very
convince
difficult.
you can't convince me about that. You've you look
you
like
know,
comfortable in front of this camera.
No, but on a serious note, you know, I'm very, very much, you know, humbled by the opportunity to sit with you. You know, because you've done an amazing job, I think.
Thank you.
With ensuring that, you know, Belizeans, anything Belizean out here in the States is, you know, has visibility. You know, and I could go on and on, you know, about that just because I I've socialized so much in other cultures to see how grand they would do things, you know. And in my mind, I'm always thinking, oh, why is it that we don't do that as Belizeans?
Yeah.
You know, and you know, so for me, you know, all of it, what I just described to you, you know, is a part of a larger plan.
Of course.
You know, it's a part of a larger plan to be able to put Belize on the map.
Of course.
You know, because my thing is, if I'm able to be, you know, doing all this stuff, you know, for these big multi-million dollar companies out here, you know, then there's a lot that I could now, you know, pay it forward, you know, to be able to help, you know, my community. So this is that first step, you know, and I'm very humbled and grateful for this opportunity. You know.
Likewise, the feeling is mutual, and thank you so much for the opportunity. We have more to come.
Yes, man. There's definitely going to be a part 2.
This is the first of many.
You know, there's definitely going to be a part 2. You know, because we're definitely going to have to do a follow up
for sure.
You know, so look out for that 2020.